This is Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. I am Cliff Schechter. That is the Emmy Award-winning David Schuster, former host at MSNBC, CNN, incredibly talented and fun individual. I've been told I've been forgetting to say these things, and I need to remember. So, as the kids say, smash that subscribe button, folks. Please subscribe. You subscribe, we grow. We're going to talk to Will about some of these things when he comes on, about what we're doing to help support independent media, what we need to do. But we've got a sound check fund. We launched it yesterday. The sound check fund is about supporting other creators. We're going to give them grants. We're going to promote them because we're lucky enough to have this large platform. I want to talk about some things, but I wanted to go on a rant first, if you'll indulge me.
And just so I can stop you just for a sec. So to everybody who's just like joining us now. So right when we were getting set up, like just a few minutes ago, Cliff said, "Hey, how you doing? Fine." And Cliff said, "I have a rant." And I'm like, "Oh," but Cliff did not tell me what the rant is. So I'm on pins and needles just like everybody else. I have no idea what Cliff is going to say, although I know that he is amped up for it. Woohoo!
I am amped up, and language will potentially be an issue. All right, let's do this thing.
Do it.
All right. Dean Kane, you were the shittiest Superman any of us have ever witnessed, and now you have joined ICE, and maybe I wouldn't bring up that you were the shittiest Superman, except for the fact that there's so much hypocrisy in your whole existence, I felt like we had to. First of all, you're a crappy actor from the 90s who, honestly, I mean, who was the asshole who played, I was going to say Hercules, Kevin Sorbo. You make Kevin Sorbo look like Humphrey Bogart. All right, let's start with that. You're irrelevant. You suck. Of course, you go on your Instagram, you play the Superman music in the background, which is insulting to all of us that you even associate that with you anymore, as you announce you're joining an organization that rips families apart, that throws U.S. citizen teenagers to the ground and says, "Sorry, bro," or amigo, I believe it was, "you have no rights here." A racist Stasi run by Donald Trump. And you announce on your Instagram with Superman music that you're joining. Did you know that Superman was an alien, you schmuck? Did you ever, is that something that ever crossed your dumb fucking mind? Sorry, I just have it in me today, David. Maybe that's something you should have looked into.
That is awesome. Keep going.
Today,
Cliff.
Thank you. Today, or not today, in the recent Superman movie, they actually make a deal of that, which today is called being woke, which is just explaining that Superman's from another planet. But clearly, and I'm sorry, folks, if you haven't seen Superman, but it's been out for a while. He gets a message from his dad, Jor-El, and there's two halves of it, is what this goes on. The first half, go to Earth, be great, and whatever. But if not, and the people won't accept you, take it over. And, whatever. The Superman, the original Superman in this movie had not heard the second half until later. Lex Luthor, of course, meant it. That's the only half you listened to. Every other Superman didn't listen to that half. You apparently loved Jor-El's message about conquer and destruction. You punk. So here's what I have to say to you. I mean, first, let me go back for a second. George Reeves would play Superman better than you right now, and he's been dead for 65 years. All right. So you've been an awful actor. You're a nobody. You need to get attention by going on Instagram and stealing the Superman music. You need to come out and act like you're some big shot or something, and you're even recruiting for ICE. So let me bring up the second part that I know about you. Remember coming across when you showed that you had gone to the Wailing Wall, I think it was 2018, 2019 with your son, because you wanted to go there and then you walk around and show them where the prophets were and talk to them about Jesus. Well, sorry if I'm channeling you if you're watching here, John Fugelsang, our friend and former guest, but did you read anything Jesus said? Did you read the parable of the stranger? Do you have any clue what your religion that you claim to support actually believes in? Clearly you do not, okay? Because Jesus wouldn't have joined ICE, all right? Jesus talked about taking in the stranger, helping somebody, helping people that didn't have the money, helping people that were from a foreign land, helping those that needed help. You, however, just want to beat down on people that are browner than you are, if we're going to be honest. And going a step further, your family, it's not even your original name. Your family's original name is Tanaka, and you've talked in the past about how members of your family were put in Japanese internment. So how many ways can you be an ungodly fucking hypocrite? You're a hypocrite to the role you played. You're a hypocrite to your religion, and you're a hypocrite to your background. Please, join Chachi and Kid Rock and whatever other gonorrhea up, wagon, you guys, whatever caravan. I don't want a caravan coming towards the United States that you make up every time. Get in the caravan, the whole lot of you, and just get the fuck out of here. Because this is the United States of America where we actually believe in equality. We actually believe in taking in the stranger. And I didn't need a Bible to tell me that, but you read your Bible theoretically. So you do, and you should follow that. Of course, you probably didn't read it and don't read. And we're not bowing down to people like you. So you're not intimidating us with ICE, you moron. Go join, go become the thug that you've always wanted to be, the thuggish Superman, the bizarro Superman, if you will. But don't act like you're something bigger, like you ever were something in Hollywood, and like anyone should listen to you because you have any influence, because you have none. Go back to the 90s. Brenda's waiting for you on 90210, and get the hell out of our lives. All right. That is my rant to Dean Kane.
So, I mean, Dean Kane is such a nobody that, Cliff, I at first didn't even know who he was. I mean, I saw some reference to it and I thought, who is Dean Kane? And then I just kept, and then I read the point about, and then I saw the note about him joining ICE. I didn't realize that he had been in the Superman. So yeah, what's so striking to me about this, Cliff, and first of all, I want to say to everybody, yes, Cliff will be revealing what he had for lunch later today, because we're all going to dip into that, because I want some of that.
Sorry.
No, that was awesome. That was awesome. So, but I just saw the news, Cliff, that ICE, which a week ago, their spokesperson said, when they were trying to increase the recruiting, right? They want to go from, I think it's, 10,000 ICE employees to 15,000, whatever it is, or 15 to 20. They said, we're going to maintain our standards.
Right.
Well, now they have gotten rid of all standards. All you have to do now to join ICE is to be living and breathing. So I guess George Reeve would not qualify, but there's no age requirement now. Anybody now, regardless of your age, regardless of your education or lack of education, ICE has thrown away all standards.
So we're becoming like Putin's military is basically what you're saying, which is like where they're going in and they're finding like 80-year-old grandmas because they've got nobody left.
That's right. And so anybody, any racist, any old infirm person who decides that they want to go after the Latinos, I guess, can sort of join ICE, and there's a $50,000, I guess, bonus that they're hanging out there for some people. I mean, it's nuts. That's how desperate they are. And the one thing about it that makes me sort of happy is they are having such a difficult time recruiting people to ICE, because I think most Americans see what's going on and see that this is a psychopathic Gestapo that ICE has created, and most Americans don't want to be part of it. So that's why the Trump administration is trying to sweeten the pot and getting rid of all standards and enabling anybody of any age. And I suppose Dean Kane, if he was 80 years old, go for it, join ICE, and Dean Kane, leave the rest of us alone.
I mean, seriously, and what I had for lunch, I had reading this guy who should not have any bit of influence. I mean, again, objectively an awful actor. All right. Yeah. Like I could sit here and say the same thing. I won't say that about John Boyd. I will say his politics are horrific, but he's actually a good actor, as much as it pains me to admit it. So I will be objective when I need to be. This guy was always a terrible actor. He was always known as the Superman everybody hated, long before any of us knew what his politics were. He was terrible as an actor. And he's tried to use what little little fame he has to do horrible things. And that just gets me. Like, you've got this little bit of fame that, and people, follow your Instagram, whatever. That's what got me. You play the Superman music in the background. Superman was founded by two Jews who wanted to tell a story about immigrants to America. Okay. And that was part of the alien story of Superman. It was the opposite of what you, Dean Kane, are using it for. And the fake, Christianity stuff, or he doesn't know his own religion on top of that. And, just all of it just gets me that he's such an evil, I'll just curse more. So I could not curse and say, hey, you're a congealed pile of cheese lying on week-old dog feces in a dumpster in the middle of Central Park in August. But that would be a more creative way of saying it. But you're awful. Like, just go away.
And Cliff, I keep going back to the guest we had the other week, and I can't remember who it was who said that there's like literally 1% or 2% of every population is psychopathic, right? Is crazy, would love this sort of sadistic opportunity that ICE presents. And there's always going to be that 1 or 2% of the population, of any population. Well, now we know that Dean Kane is part of that, because there's no redeeming quality clearly that he has. And there's no redeeming quality that I can imagine. If somebody wanted to say, hey, I'm going to join ICE and I'm going to go to the border, Like I want to help with the border.
Right.
Okay, I might disagree with you, but I could sort of see the logic there and the consistency. But if you're going to ICE now just to grab people off the streets, because you don't like the Latinos and you want to make America pure again, you are a disgusting, vile human being. And Dean Kane now is clearly in that category.
Right. Your reaction to seeing kids thrown to the ground and seeing windows broken on cars and people pulled out of them and these kinds of things, fourth graders pulled out of their classes. And your reaction to that is, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very Superman of you, Dean Kane. Very Superman of you. What a scumbag. And I just, that was all like just came together 5 minutes before the show. So if that was, that was
well done. That was
thought
great.
experiment where I just had diarrhea of the mouth. I apologize, folks, but man, people like that who use their little fame to hurt people make me sick. And he makes me sick. And now we need to get Will Robinson here. So we're going to have a really smart conversation where I promise I'll probably curse a bit less about the Democratic Party, about Democratic politics, and what we need to be doing. There's a decent amount of it to communicate better. Really, I mean, in a whole different way than we're communicating through infrastructure, messaging. All that Will has been writing brilliantly. He'll hear about it. Hey, Will.
Hey, how are you? I enjoyed the fresh rant.
Thank you. I was going to say, I was hoping I didn't scare you away and make you not want to join us after that.
I could take Superman. I was worried about Danger Will Robinson might be where you started. So,
hey, Will, David Schuster here. A pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you too, sir.
Yes.
Two giants in their industries. David obviously is a terrific anchor, and Will was the guy who always was ahead of the pack when Democratic consultants would be like, let's do this ads the old way. Will will be looking at digital. Will be ahead. I've came across him again, knowing him on and off for years and seeing some of his brilliant writing here on Substack, and had to have him on because he's diagnosing everything that we need fixed. What should we begin with? How can we communicate with people? Do we need our own Joe Rogan? Mm-hmm. Is David Schuster that Joe Rogan?
Wow,
what do we need to do, Will? Help us, please.
So the first thing we need to do is to convince the consultants that TV isn't the 800-pound gorilla anymore. It's a 198-pound gorilla, and it doesn't run the zoo. And progressives, we get it, but the consultants don't, and we're still spending hundreds of millions of dollars, wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on television. I think the other thing is we need to realize, but mainstream media isn't what it used to be, and going out and doing a press release is not communicating with people. The Republicans have a huge organic distribution network, and it doesn't end at Fox News. It's online, it's bots, and even Christian radio stations have a digital component that communicates with people. And unlike us, where we communicate in October, maybe, it's 24/7. So, there isn't a simple answer, but I used to work for a very progressive congressman named Bob Edgar. And what he kept on telling me was, we are the leaders we are waiting for. And we need to be our own communicators. And, evil Facebook, it's ugly, it's whatever. I don't want to be a part of it. Well, that doesn't work. We need to get in that ecology. We need to communicate with people.
Will, on your first point about television not being what it used to, I mean, it's disheartening to hear that there are Democratic political operatives and ad makers and people who spend the money who are still going to television, when I was blown away and thrilled the other day, and I was telling Cliff about this, that a guy who, he's in charge of millions of dollars of advertising, and he's like, we don't spend any money on television. It's all online. And I'm thinking, if this guy who is selling, I think it's eyeglasses, if they're putting their money into digital, why is it that the Democrats are not wholeheartedly saying, forget about television, forget about cable, let's go all in on digital? What is keeping them back?
The consultants. And, I am a recovering media consultant, and, consultants are parasites, okay? But the number one rule of being a parasite is don't kill the host. And guess what just happened? And we're literally to the point now where people are making bad strategic decisions based on money. There was just a Nielsen that every month they release, what percentage of people were watching television through broadcasts, and 18.5% of people last month were watching television on broadcast.
Wow.
And they were all seniors. So when you turn on hour 7 of the Today Show, the only ads you see are for Jardiance and Metamucil and reverse mortgages and, that kind of stuff, because the only people that are watching television are seniors.
Right. Right. I mean, basically what used to be the whole advertising reel at Fox News has now become at all television, right? It's like, hey, boner pills and reverse mortgages for everybody. This is important, Will, and because there are conspiracy theories and there are conspiracy theories, and it's what frustrates the hell out of me as someone who I grew up on the East Coast, all of that, New York City. I live in Cincinnati. This was a swing state at one point, and they have helped turn it into a red state with their propaganda. What I don't get is why, there's money that's been made by the right investing in some of this infrastructure. An example being Sinclair. And I use them because I was actually a Sinclair analyst in 2004, the liberal analyst they would have on air to argue with all the idiots there. And that goes out. They purposely, like a lot of their stations are in swing states, right, around the country. How is it that we don't have one person that can go and purchase a number of stations like that? How is it that we don't have one? Because people still do watch local news. How is it that we don't have one person that can go and invest in and buy a social media platform the way Elon Musk did? It just seems like it's always them. Talk radio, you brought, Christian radio, Salem or whichever one it's called. It's changed over time. Has all these local stations. I turned on the local one here. The guy's a moron, and I'm hearing him. And there's like 5 maybe progressive independent stations around the country. They go on AM 950 in Minneapolis with Matt McNeil, who's a wonderful host. But we don't have that in most places. Like, what is the problem here? Why is it that our guys have not done any of this?
I think because we don't understand how media works. Have you ever heard of a thing called the innovator's dilemma? Have you heard of that?
Heard of it, but I couldn't break it down for you.
So it's a thing in business that a dominant industry, a successful industry, makes small changes because they're successful until they're confronted with disruptive change. And then they can't deal with it. And the Republicans 40 years ago saw they weren't winning. So they went and set up these right-wing networks. They put C3 money in, and they built this network, and it's going 24/7 organically. We doubled and tripled down on television. We doubled and tripled down on press, and it works until it doesn't work anymore. So we're going the way of Sears and Roebuck, of the railroads, of Blockbuster Video, and we need to change. And as I said, I'm a recovering media consultant. I'm a TV guy, and I'm telling you to stop buying television. And maybe a little bit.
And I want to be very clear to people because, I mean, you have to understand when Will is saying this, I mean, my gosh, as far as I remember, you used to do the media, the ads for almost every race here in Ohio. And it wasn't just Ohio. I mean, Will is one of the top media consultants across the country for many, many years. So for him to be saying that, I just want you guys to understand the importance of that. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, I've got 2 questions related to that. First, the first one is, I want to ask you sort of about the style in terms of advertising versus TV versus advertising that's effective on digital. But first, let's give people some good news. Who are the Democrats, or are there any Democrats that actually have recognized this and are doing a better job of the digital strategy and focusing on digital and digital networking as opposed to TV?
I mean, everyone's pointing to New York. And I think that's a good example, but it's not just the media strategy, it's the entire strategy of the campaign. And besides being a recovering media consultant, I say the problem with the Democratic Party is that we're run by high school debaters.
Mm.
And we think the right 70-word message read to people will convince people, like we're trying to win an argument. And as a recovering high school debater, I know that's not true. And we need to have conversations with people, which also, when you're doing that kind of communication, you need to shut up and you need to listen. And we're doing too much talking, too much about us and not enough about the audience.
So related to that, I mean, there's a style, right, that everybody who's been in television sort of knows in terms of a successful ad, that you tell a story, you personalize it. Is digital messaging that different?
It is.
And how so?
Well, people look at political ads now and they basically think they're infomercials. Let me give you an example. The candidate is walking along next to a cop. The candidate is sitting in a diner talking to seniors. The candidate comes across a semicircle of people who happen to be wearing hard hats and has a conversation with them. Okay.
I made so many of these ads in the past. This is almost like PTSD inducing. Go ahead.
And I was in a focus group and I'm like, what are the visuals? And like, they started reeling them off and I'm like, oh my, like it was a secret or something. People want authenticity. And that what's going on right now is a lot of the communications aren't polished ads, but they are like this on a cell phone, on a laptop, and people talking. And what I found is that people want to see the ums and ers. They want to see the seams. They want to see the mistakes because that's how real people communicate. So I did some video in Florida. I had a teacher. She was in the basement of a middle school. She was exhausted. The kids around her had bad skin and stringy hair. And in the middle of the interview, a toilet flushed in the background. And rather than saying, cut, we kept on running because it's, real life.
It's real life, yeah.
And we tested it and everybody kind of giggled, but then someone said, the kids look awful. She looks exhausted and the toilet flushed in the background. Welcome to real life, as opposed to political ads, which would have had an actor or a very well made up teacher and a bunch of kids that, come from Benetton ads and a beautiful classroom. And people can see through BS. And then the other thing is that we don't talk policy talk in real life. I call it podium talk. And what we need to do is start talking porch talk, how real people talk. And that's where digital ads can come in really so well. And, one of the challenges, is that as a consultant, we would do 30-second ads. And over the course of the campaign, you might do 15 ads. Last week, we did 37 ads in my little boutique firm because we were doing all sorts of ads targeted.
Are these all digital? Sorry to interrupt, but yes. So are you doing any TV ads anymore?
Yeah, and we do some, but it's like 20% of our business, maybe.
Right. I mean, there's a moment. I'm not saying they have no utility at all. I know you're not saying that, especially maybe cable or what have you. But yeah, I just was wondering. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, but it's like I had a senator. This was his 6-second ad. Insulin used to be $30 a vial. Now it's $300. What's up with that? Okay. That's a complete thought. And we were running those along with 15 seconds. And he said he was walking into a drugstore and the college kid was like, I saw your video. What's up with that? And he had this conversation and he's like, no offense, Will, but like not many people ask me about my TV commercials. And I asked the kid, where did you see that? And he goes, Candy Crush. And he's like, why are we on Candy Crush? Because that's where people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but the problem
is, you want to find people where they are? That sounds like a crazy idea, Will.
I know. The other thing is culture crushes credentials. And we're all about experts. And guess what? Most people don't trust experts. I grew up in a battleground of battlegrounds, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, as opposed to Delaware County, Ohio. And
Also a battleground these days.
Also a battleground. And there was a bar where I grew up that, I'd get muddy and I'd sneak in and they'd let me drink a Roy Rogers or something and use the bathroom. But I watched those guys, and most of them were, construction people. And I often thought that if I took one of our messages and sat in that bar right now and read it to people, would I get through the first paragraph without getting my teeth punched out? And I really think for a lot of this, no, because we don't talk like humans. We need to talk like real people. And part of it is, what the audience cares about. It's tough. And man, democracy is in trouble. It really is in trouble, but it's tough to talk about democracy being in trouble when people can't make their rent, or someone has a 28-year-old kid sleeping on the couch, or any of those things that are going on in real life. And problem isn't democracy being threatened. The problem is we're not also talking about the things that real people care about.
Well, maybe we tie the fact that democracy is in trouble to the fact that, there's a middle class that's essentially disappeared, and that people can't, David sent me some article I was looking at that in New York City, now there are people making $800,000 a year, and private schools will give them tuition aid to send there, because $800,000 in New York City is not cut. This is the stuff of just ridiculousness.
And for the record,
this is like Blade Runner shit.
Some private school tuitions in New York, and we're talking, to send your second grader to a private school, you're talking $70,000. So if you have 2 kids or 3 kids, and let's just suppose you're in a school district where the public school is terrible and you want to send them to a private school, that's why, these private schools, many of them are endowed by billionaires. And so they have the money. They have the money to give you if you're only making $800,000, because they know, oh yeah, our tuition's really high.
Right. But even these places are changing. Are you still, like, to give you an example, I can speak to Cincinnati. Will, are you still based in Maine?
I pretend to live in Maine. My kid's with me here in DC, so I'm the only human being on the planet who's from Maine summering in DC right now.
If you've got a place open, if it's anywhere in like the Kennebunkport, or let's say Bar Harbor, or any of those areas, I'm happy to go stay there.
Yeah, well, I'm going up over Labor Day, and I'm probably going to just sit outside where it's not 105 degrees. Although today I think it's like 90 in Portland.
Okay.
Can I ask you? Go ahead.
Yeah, no. You go ahead, because there's something about Maine I want to ask you. It rhymes with Musin Mullins, and but we'll get to that in a second. You go ahead.
So the other thing is, I want to talk about disinformation, and we are really in an environment right now where they call it the fire hose of disinformation, where there's just blasts of right-wing propaganda, but it's really pretty clever. So my kid on TikTok comes to me and says, I just saw a video, birth control causes cancer. I'm like, what? And it's like, yeah, and it also causes strokes. And if you use birth control, you may not be able to have a baby later. And I'm like, okay, let's take a look at it. And it's like the University of Strasbourg and Dr. Nazmo King. Okay. And I'm like, honey, did you check the source? No. And I'm like, it's totally made up. And I almost got the reaction like, it's on the internet, so it must be true. But those platforms, especially with young people, are driving this disinformation. Harris lost 21-year-olds, and she
which
lost
is crazy,
right? But it's like they're
and 45% or 47% of Latinos,
right? And that, especially the young men, everyone giggles when Trump talks about having a wrestling match fight on the lawn of the White House, but like that's the kind of stuff that people perceive as real. And same thing with him standing in the window of the McDonald's. We all roll our eyes, but it's culture for a lot of people, and it sends a message to a lot of people. And guess what? The 20-year-old male is not reading a newspaper and not watching the news and not seeing any of our TV commercials either.
So, right. All that went through my mind, I'm being honest with you. I wrote this piece. I was for Substack. I was in Italy. I was in Rome at the time, literally staring at the Coliseum, and he announces the UFC fight. I'm like, could this be the more perfect bread and circuses analogy of what is going on with us? But to stay on the disinformation, and again, like that's a long-term problem. I've ranted on this a lot, that, Nazi symbols are not allowed to be shown in Germany. There are laws in parts of Western Europe where, they come to the conclusion that certain hate speech and other stuff, lies that harm people, undermines free speech. In fact, I had Brian Karam on here. We had him on here. He went to prison. I think he's gone to prison 3 or 4 times to protect a source. And he will say that disinformation isn't free speech. In fact, it is the opposite. It destroys free speech. And the fact that become such extremists on this issue that we've got truth in advertising unless it's political. Then you can tell lies about vaccines that kill people. Then you can, this is a longer term thing that we have to solve, because we're losing people to, as you said, these flat out lies that have no truth and would not be allowed to be told in a lot of Western European countries.
Right. But right now, we can't regulate that.
No, you're right. I know.
And so I think what we need to do is, going back to where the leaders are waiting for, we need to be our own communicators.
Yep.
And a lot of these areas in Ohio, Toledo, all the West Virginia along the river media market.
Yep.
We're losing. And part of the problem is they're not hearing from us, and then they're not seeing our folks on social media, because you stick your head out of the foxhole, you get it blown off. And what we need to do is start getting the people who are as angry as us on social media, talking to your friends, talking to the family, because they think these areas are more Republican because they don't hear from us. Mm-hmm. And some professor from Cleveland talking on the TV or doing a video doesn't mean as much as a high school coach or somebody I know. So, my short-term solution is we got to jump into the pool. We don't need to have the same tactics as them, but what we need to do is start communicating with people. And it's not going to be fixed by TV ads. It's not going to be fixed by the press.
Can it be fixed without having the same infrastructure? I mean, it's, I love the idea of, a Democrat coming in and buying a social platform like Twitter, or buying a whole bunch of television stations like Sinclair. That seems like it's going to take a while. In the meantime, can Democrats, without that infrastructure, can they still somehow flood the zone and still deliver these messages and have them penetrate?
So let me say quickly, and before Will answers that, and again, this may sound self-serving, but there are also people on this platform bigger than us. Yeah. And this email that will go out from this show will be seen by somewhere between 375 and 500,000 people. Okay. That's bigger than CNN during the day. And I believe it's bigger than MSNBC during the day. So I would even say, and I've argued in favor of Substack for this reason, is that to store, if you've got your email list, your data, to store that kind of a list of your subscribers would cost you $10,000-15,000 a month, right? To do a lot of the stuff you do, to put stuff out on these platforms like this, you'd have to pay for all of these various things. They provide us with a lot of this infrastructure, and I feel like we need to use these kinds of hacks like Substack to get our message out there, because we've got plenty of creators and influencers who don't have to put that money in.
Right. And I agree. And I think it's also, why buy old technology when we could use current technology? 74% of Americans were on Facebook at some point during the week. And it's a cesspool. But we can still go through and communicate with people. And if I post something on my Facebook page, it's not just the content, it's the fact that I posted it. And to my friends, they'll share it. And, we're all experts on something. I would never talk about cars. I don't know what's going on with cars. So one of my friends posts about cars, that really makes a difference for me.
Someone you trust in that area. Yeah.
Right. And so we need to speak up, and that, we have a platform right now. What I love about Substack is we own our names, as opposed to Facebook, where we really don't. Right. But, we need to be our own communicators. So, and we spend a lot of time in progressive politics having strangers talk to strangers. We knock on doors. We get 9% of the people. They have no idea who we are. Doorbell cams are killing us. We send postcards to strangers, but on your phone, you have 300, 400, 5,000 people who know you. When you send content to them, they trust you. So
it's like what Republicans have done, not to interrupt, but like for perspective, through church groups and through Rotary clubs and we have obviously, these kinds of lifestyle groups too, where there are people interested in certain issues that tend to lean more to the left. And I don't know why we also have not embraced that.
So who do you think is the most influential person in a small town?
Mr. Beast.
No.
No?
The most influential person in a small town?
Yeah.
I don't know, the bar owner?
Could be. It could be the head of the volunteer fire company. It could be the commissioner of the youth soccer league. These are people that are connectors, that have relationships that are not political, but are the fabric of a community. And a ton of volunteer firemen are teachers because the cadets they need to keep an eye on and not have the cadets kill each other or kill anybody else. A ton of paramedics are school nurses. So like we have some of the most influential people in America, most trusted people in America. Public school teachers are 74% approval. Members of Congress are 16. Who do you think should be out there talking at this point? So we have the people. We just need to get them out there doing stuff.
Now, as far as the stuff that they do, and let's suppose there's a teacher out there or a volunteer firefighter who's listening to this and saying, okay, I'm going to post something on Facebook. Are there general guidelines? Long things versus short things, video versus article, 6-second blurbs like what you were talking about what's up with that versus things that are longer?
Generally, video's king right now. But with Facebook, the algorithm changes every week.
That's what's frustrating me about YouTube too. I mean, I'm there, right. I'll stay there. We've got a decent presence there, but they change an algorithm and they don't tell you, and they don't feel a need to respond to you and all of that.
So it's like a treatment for eczema. Use what works for you, okay? And literally, 6-second may work. I'm seeing now this week, what is it, the 7th of August, that some longer format stuff is doing better on Facebook. Now, I ask you who the most influential person is. What's one of the most tragic events? What's one of the most disruptive events that happens to a student during a school year?
Gets bullied.
Huh?
Gets bullied?
A lockdown drill, perhaps?
Head lice.
Oh, right. Oh, especially when they're younger, the head lice thing.
And guess who can write an article and get to parents or do a video on, so your kid has head lice? Okay. The
nurse, I guess.
Right. School nurse, a teacher, whatever. And at that point in time, that piece of communication is absolutely vital. It has nothing to do about politics. It is about relationships and making connections with people. A school bus driver writing about your kid's going to ride the school bus for the first time. That school bus driver has professional voice and that parent will listen to them. So part of it is like we need to get our people communicating about stuff that's not just political, but it's like knitting themselves into the community. And the person who tells me how to cure head lice and says, you know what, you really need to get your COVID vaccine, I'm going to trust that person more because I have a relationship with them, as opposed to some doctor wearing a white lab coat from some, elite Eastern University hospital.
Right.
How do you cure head lice, by the way? I don't know.
Oh man, it's this black crud. It tastes like death. It's just
like
awful.
A flamethrower kind of thing?
Yeah, no, and you have to like pick out the things and burn pillows and.
I had them when I was a kid. I think I had to be put in a bath, and there's like that special shampoo that like burns your head. It's lots of fun.
Right, but the thing is, like, at that point in time, that's like that's exactly why these relationships matter. And, bullying happens, or these big things, but these are the day-to-day things that matter in people's lives.
Absolutely. I mean, again, we keep seeing it again and again. So how important this is. All right. So I have to get back to that question. Traumatized by this. 2002, a young pup named Cliff Schechter. I can't believe I just referred to myself in the third person. Worked in Portland, Maine for Shelley Pingree against Susan Collins and thought, we're going to get rid of Susan Collins. It's been about 22 years since then. Shelley's at least made it to the House. She's terrific. But I just saw something, talk about people who are genuine versus complete frauds. I just saw a poll, if it's accurate, in Maine, finally, that had Susan Collins at 14% approval. So either it's crazy or maybe people have finally caught on to her. No, really, I'm pro-choice, but I'm going to vote for Brett Kavanaugh. No, really, can we finally knock her the hell out of the Senate?
I think we have a good shot, and there's two reasons why. One is Maine. If you're not a Mainer, they call you from away, and literally,
I remember that being called. Yeah,
the governor in the State of the State speech will refer to the people from away. It's like it's a normal phrase that people use. About 30%, 35% of the population is now people from away. Evil people from New York and Massachusetts and these sort of places. The first summer I was in Maine when we moved there, I still had DC tags on my car, and I could read people's lips. They see the tag, I could see F and DC, in my rearview mirror. They hate outsiders, but these outsiders don't have the years of relationships with Susan Collins. And, I met a school committee member in Presque Isle who disagreed with something she did, but it's like, I've known her since we were in grade school together. So it's like that thing. The other thing is that, sorry, what you voted for hurts Maine. And we passed an increase in Medicaid in Maine. And the most important issue for doing that is it kept emergency rooms from closing in rural hospitals. And if you're in a town where your emergency room closes, that's a major tragedy. But if you happen to be driving between Bangor and Portland and you have a heart attack or a stroke, that's a tragedy too if there's no hospitals.
Yeah.
And so, rural post offices are closing. And so these things are having real life consequences. And even though, we don't do good messaging, when something like that happens to you and you can point to the person who voted for it and is responsible for that, I think that's going to have an impact on her.
That's what I've always felt like. If it happens to you, the one place where Republicans can't cover it up is they can't convince you have a job if you don't have a job.
Right.
They can't convince you you're healthy if you're not healthy,
right.
And that kind of thing.
Right. And, you can't beat somebody with nobody. We need to have somebody to run.
Well, Janet Mills, I've heard rumors. Is there a possibility there?
I think so.
That's the governor for anybody who doesn't pay attention to Maine politics.
No, she's the one who stood up to Donald Trump.
Yep.
And she's a Mainer. She takes time off to go hunt. She gets her deer. She fishes on weekends. I called the governor's office one time and she answered. Governor's office.
That's it. You sold me. We need to beg her to run.
And I'm like, what are you doing answering the phone, Janet? And she's like, the phone is ringing. I'm the only one here. And I'm like,
that's authenticity. We need her. Seriously, we need her to run because you're right. I'd forgotten about that. I mean, she got right up and Trump threatened to sue her and she was like, bring it on.
Well, question about the mood, because there's a lot of people out there who say that, the bill that the Republicans passed and Medicare cuts in order to pay for, tax cuts for the rich, that there's some political analysts who say this should be a very pro-democratic environment. Democrats should pick up 30 or 40 seats if they can get the messaging right, because that's the kind of anger that is out there. Do you see it the same way?
I see it the same way, but the big if is whether we can get our act together. And we are running 20th century campaigns in the 21st century. And we need to change. And the Republicans are running different kind of campaigns. And in fact, they're running disinformation campaigns. And you can't do I'm not saying we need to do disinformation, but we need to have strategies to counter disinformation, as that's not 6 weeks of TV at 1,000 points a week.
Right.
Is building connections with people, and which means we need to start now. We need to start now.
We've in so many of those, we've waited to the last minute to think somehow that's when people have been in this ecosystem of bullshit coming from the other side. So you're talking about congressional races, and obviously they're scared. We see what they're doing in Texas, but I'm heartened to see, maybe this is another question for you about, Democrats needing to toughen up a little bit. Everything from Cory Booker giving a great speech and really yelling almost at other Democrats that they need to stop enabling Trump, to what the Texas Democrats are doing right now, to Newsom, Pritzker, and Hochul, all because the Democratic Party of 10 years ago would have been like, let's all sit down and figure this out, and finally they're just like, no, you're not going to steal. So you think that might provide some more, toughness on our side?
So I'm going to say something a little unpopular. I think that the press conferences and some of that stuff is good, but it's still political. We're still responding in a political way. And I think we need to get away from the Capitol. We need to get away from, if I see one more freaking blue curtain behind somebody, it's like, here they are on an alien planet and we don't know where they are. Let's
and then
get
Chuck
out there.
Schumer is reading a statement with his glasses at the end. Yep, you got it. His glasses at the end of his nose, and I'm like, dude, do you want to look like a caricature from a movie? What are you doing?
Right, but you know what? Chuck Schumer could be on the street in New York, and he's perfectly comfortable in New York, and a cabbie will yell at him, and he yell back. And we see too much Capitol Chuck Schumer and not enough New York Chuck Schumer.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Go back to Brooklyn, where you're from, and start yelling at people.
Right, and it's just kind of, like, you know what? This kind of thing wouldn't cut it here in Brooklyn, and it won't cut it here in America. But it's like the gloves have to come off, and it's not just a really hot, well-written 70-word, passage. It's actually going out there and doing something.
Yep. Well, I'll say quickly, and then you can jump in, David, on that front of authentic, some who are always authentic, even when the Democrats weren't. I've heard some positive rumors from, let's say, some insiders I know about Sherrod Brown here in Ohio and that open Senate race. And people don't get that Trump's numbers are so bad here right now. And John Husted is the embodiment of a Mitt Romney khakis wearing insider Republican. He doesn't have that outsider thing. That I think that would be something that could help us a ton too.
Absolutely. And the thing is that Sherrod Brown is incredibly articulate, but Sherrod Brown could go in any bar in Ohio and be welcomed. Yep. And chances are he knows somebody in the bar.
I've talked about how I've been in a room with him, like in a fundraising room with him, where he's got a suit on, but his hair is still, of course, a little out of whack and whatever. And I've been in a rally at a trucker hall, and he's the same dude. He's as comfortable in both of those places.
But, someone told me, and I think this is probably true, that when he travels in Ohio, he pretty much knows everyone who's wearing a uniform. And if he doesn't know them by name, he knows them. And I think that's different than a lot of other politicians. And the other thing is, I realized that I was talking to a candidate and they were complaining about campaigning. Oh, I got to go out. And it's like, Sherrod Brown's the kind of guy who goes to the state fair and hopefully we have it again, and, is done there and then wants to go on the midway or goes to a parade and hangs around because it's fun. So, I'm with real people.
Yeah. Can I tell you quickly? I keep cutting you off, David. I'm very sorry, but this is a great story. So when we first moved here, my son, who's now going off to college, I'm going to start crying, was, little. Dougie, my older son, was maybe 2, 3, a couple years old. And we met Sherrod at an event just to show you how great he is at this. And of course, he went straight up to Dougie and shook Dougie's hand and was asking him about all sorts of stuff and this and that. And a week later, whenever it was, his staff checked it out. Whenever we get a letter in the mail, it's to Dougie Schechter. When we open it, it's like, Dougie, I want to let you know you've got very smart parents who are Democrats. They've done a great job. Stick with the movement, or whatever it was. And I was just like, this guy is so good at this. He's always been that authentic. And people forget, I'll say quickly, that when Kamala lost here by 11, Sherrod came within 3. He overperformed by 8. So when people are just like, oh, well, even Sherrod can't win there. In a bad year for us here, Sherrod almost won here. He absolutely can win here.
Yep.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I'm still so, that is a remarkable story. And Sherrod Brown, if he can get back in this, that would be phenomenal. I was so struck, Will, when you were mentioning a few minutes ago the 6 second ad about insulin and what's up with that. Give us some more examples because I think our audience is intrigued. Give us some more other examples of sort of the digital messaging that seems to be working, or the kind of ads or the kind of shorts videos that you've been involved in that have been effective.
So I'm going to get there with a bit of a, you know, so I started political consulting with a guy named Joe Slade White. And
I
he was
remember.
like, uber creative, kind of guy, but he was a protege of Tony Schwartz.
I worked in the
Um,
same building as him on 16th Street, by the way, back
yep.
in the day. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And that, Tony Schwartz is the guy who did the Daisy ad that, ends up, and
Yep.
in fact, I wrote a Substack on this. But
Well, the
his
name
whole,
of this thing is "What Would LBJ Do?" It all comes full circle.
right.
Sorry.
And, but part of what he had was this idea of responsive chord, where you connect with people and they're in the message with you. So what works with 6 second ads and 15-second ads are things that evoke an emotional response out of people. And talk about, we should have libraries that have books for the kids they want, or stuff like that. We don't want to take healthcare away from seniors, but there are messages that are short but evoke an emotional response. And that's what we need to look at. And that can also, people are like, yeah, I do that. And maybe they'll click on something and they'll get more information. But if you read a transcript of people having a conversation, it's all over the place. There are sentence fragments and that sort of thing. And one of the things that Tony Schwartz says is you don't need to complete a sentence. So the first time I met him, he's like, you're full of, and he's like, I know what words you were thinking because we complete the sentence. And so a lot of times by these shorter ads, we can have them complete the sentence or them complete the emotion. And part of the problem with having a party run by high school debaters, we think that voting is a rational decision, and voting is an emotional decision,
Yep.
and storytelling is one of the most powerful ways for us to communicate because our brains are wired for stories, and it evokes an emotional response. So if you were going to say, what are the two things? Is get your messages down to these crux of emotional things, but be a better storyteller. People will never remember a speech, but if there's a good story embedded in a speech, they'll remember that.
I mean, let's be honest. That's what Bill Clinton was a genius at, right? He'd get you
Right.
weaved into a story about something that happened, and I mean, and I just don't understand how we forget that. I don't understand how more Democratic politicians don't know that. I mean, it's how we all communicated, for how long we've been able to basically talk 10,000 years because people couldn't write stuff down. They told stories. That's how we,
Well,
evolved.
a friend of mine said there was a reason why there were drawings on cave walls because they wanted to tell stories
Yeah.
50,000 years ago.
Right.
And, so then when I met Tony Schwartz, he's like, you're a really interesting kid. You tell these stories and then you get in front of the podium and you turn into this thing. And he's like, get rid of that and keep the storytelling person because that's what people will engage with, storytelling. So, what do? Where we become our own communicators, stick your head outside the foxhole. There's safety in numbers and tell stories. So you want to talk about Medicaid cuts? Just the other day, I talked to my uncle and he said, blah, 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 blah. Just the other day gets people's attention and it's a real life way. My mom, they're closing down the post office in her town. You know what that's going to do to that town? Why are they doing that? It's the
Right.
postal service. It's not a postal corporation. And you take a post office away, you destroy a town. And those are the kind of stories that we need to tell. And everybody who's on this thing right now got fired up with the rant and now go tell stories.
That's right. Well, I was in some ways telling a story. It wasn't a personal one because I'm not unlucky enough to have met Dean Kane, but we delved a little bit into instead of just making it about you know what immigration is doing, and here's the percent of people they're hurting. We talked about who they were hurting. We talked about Dean Kane, and we used some mockery, which evokes emotion. I mean, they're believe it or not, as crazy as I seem, I get it. There is an actual method to my madness, which is people, as we know, people emotion, connects with people, and we need more of that.
Well, and certain words connect. And there once was a time, and when I think of Dean Kane, I now think of douchebag. And so there was once a time when you couldn't use that word in messaging because, you shouldn't be doing that. Have we changed? Can we now use coarse language in our messaging for people we disagree with?
It depends. And that there are still people that get offended by profanity. And that we need to be careful. But also, as we all know, profanity is a sign of genius.
Yes.
When I was in third grade, the nun's like, William, is there a possibility that your father might have been a sailor?
I just always use the excuse that I grew up in, late 70s, early 80s Manhattan when they were making like Escape from New York and Death Wish, and Warriors. I mean, that's just the way we talked. You know what I mean? There was nothing. I do think in certain cases, and some Democrats have started doing that. You've seen Jasmine Crockett and Eric Swalwell. I think there are times. I think if you just sit there and every other word is profanity, then it seems like you're doing it and you're being fake, just like if you're not. But there are times where the word "fuck" needs to be said. I mean, I'm sorry. I had a couple of people in a few of the Substacks I've written are commenters who were not so happy with. I was cursing a bit much, and I said, okay. What I'll do here is, where the U should be an FUCK, I'll put a little asterisk if that makes you feel better. But I can't stop, just the way sometimes, it may be different words that are a little more highfalutin that do the best job describing something. Sometimes, I'm sorry, it's just saying the word shit, and that just is what it is.
What Trump's doing right now is killing children and seniors and others.
Correct.
So I think an occasional profanity is a punctuation mark on profanity that he's doing in policy.
I say that's the profanity. If you're taking away SNAP and kids are starving to death, if you're taking away Medicaid, and that's the other thing I can't say when we try to, make it sound nicer. Don't make it sound nicer. The people who lose Medicaid, some of them are going to die because of it.
Yep.
So Elon Musk can add 100 feet or whatever to his yacht. And so the fact of the matter is that is fucking profane, quite honestly. And we need to be on it. We need to tell people about it. So what can you tell us before we go? How do we fix the entire world, Will, in like 30 seconds?
I think that people need to stop talking and start doing. My favorite thing to say when someone say, how are things going, Will? I say, besides that, Mrs. Lincoln, how is the show? Okay. That's kind of where we're at. And then you can sit down and go, woe is me. And that a lot of us are here for a reason. A lot of us have a skill set, and it's time for you to put that skill set to work, whether it's relationships you have locally or relationships you have nationally. We literally, our country is teetering right now.
Yeah.
And that the way we're not in a military conflict now, we're in a conflict of ideas. We're a conflict of where we want to take this country. And if you're silent, you're complicit. So people need to speak out.
I also think that if you're silent, you're depressing yourself, right? I mean, I think when people do something, when they take some kind of action, they feel better. Even if it's not precise, or even if you're not an expert, even if you're not sure whether this post that you put up on Facebook is going to really move the needle with anybody, you feel better. So just for that reason alone, instead of just being reactive and sitting back and thinking, oh, woe is me, the world is terrible, when you actually get out there and take some sort of action, you feel like you're taking some ownership and control back, and it makes you feel better.
Yep. Well, thank you to you guys for doing this. You're doing a great service, and thank you to all the people that are watching. We are the resistance.
Well, we are. And before you go, Will, the one thing I do want to say is you were, and let's give people where to find you. But I'm reading your Substack. I took you seriously at the end there when you said, hey, if you agree with me on these things, on what's going on, please reach out. And I started thinking right away, okay, how long until I can, I'm going to reach out to Will. So I want this to be an ongoing conversation. You and I can chat more offline, online, but however we can get this message across best and communicate it. This is why we're here.
And if you disagree with me, tell me. I've had some things like, I don't know if I agree with that, Will, and I'm having some really good conversations with people because we just can't tell people screw off if you disagree with me.
Right.
And, I'm going to probably write a little bit differently on something because I thought that someone made a good point on what I was writing. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that note. But, we're all in this together. So please, you'll give them this, my Substack.
Yes.
And let's keep the conversations going.
Please give us, I know you're at Will Robinson, which is a pretty straightforward name to spell. But is there another name for your Substack that I'm not thinking of?
Just at Will Robinson, and it's the one with the little Lost in Space robot. And thank you for not bringing up the ancient Will Robinson.
It'll be easy to remember.
All I can tell you, folks, is honestly, one of the smartest communicators out there. You will find yourself like nodding along and saying, yes, why are we not? So read Will, subscribe to Will, support Will, because he's somebody who was in the system, knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak, and is taking it on now.
Hey, Will, great to meet you, and pleasure being on with you. Thanks for doing this.
All right.
Thank you so much, Will. Take care.
All right. Take care.
I'll be in touch.
All right. That was fascinating.
Yeah. He really
so
is everything
thoughtful.
I said. He's so, besides like, it could be an awesome stand-in for Jerry Garcia, which I have to love, right? But seriously, known him now 20, 25, I don't know how many years, and he was one of the best, and is probably still one of the best, but was one of the best in terms of the TV ad guys. And so people have to understand how powerful this is. He's like, TV sucks and doesn't work now, because he's going where stuff works, not where he can make the most money. And that's so important. So
that authenticity that he comes shining through, not only in terms of his message, but in terms of him and how we all need to try to communicate with each other. It's remarkable.
So do you have anything else to add, David? You have to go pick up some kids or anything?
I've got some camp pickups. I just want to say, Dean Kane, if you're out there and you're mad, we'll put you on the show. We'll have a conversation with you. We don't discount anybody, but you got to come here and have an honest conversation. We're not going to let you filibuster.
We actually get more people here than you do in anything you do. Okay? So come here and join us. I'll probably say fuck you, but then I'll also listen to what you have to say and then probably say fuck you again. But seriously, hey, you're Superman. You're a tough guy. You want to join ICE and beat people up if you're so tough? Come join us here. Anytime. Invitation anytime. And we'll have a discussion. I will let you say your piece as long as you don't play the Superman music in the background. My one requirement.
Cliff, have a great show. Have a great afternoon, my friend.
David, you're great as always. Thank you for being here. I think we'll both sign off at the same time here. Thank you all for watching. Remember, smash that subscribe button. Seriously, folks, the more you subscribe, the more of this we can do. It's a pleasure doing this show. This has been Amped Up with Cliff Schechter. I'm Cliff Schechter. That is the terrific David Schuster. Have a great day, my friends. Take care.